Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to cover our EV news. It's an EV news episode. On Friday's episode, we're going to cover Ford's Q2 2024 earnings call. But today, EV news. Let's go ahead and jump into it. You know what? We're going to start with Tesla news because I only had 3 Tesla stories that I thought were interesting, and that was it. So we'll start with Tesla news and then work our way to the other EV news. Starting off, the data center at Giga Texas is closer to becoming reality. This data center is going to house 100,000 NVIDIA H100 and H200 chips for training the neural network. And this will be for full self-driving and Optimus, the humanoid robot. So just to give you an idea, an H100 NVIDIA chip costs between $30,000 and $40,000, and an H200 is right around $60,000. So to outfit this, we're between $3 and $4 billion total for Tesla to outfit this data center, which is just massive, massive. Speaking of massive, there's going to be massive fans because you got to keep this building and these chips cool. So there are going to be massive fans installed inside the building, as well as 4 giant water tanks to help with cooling as well. Elon did give the data center a name, and it'll be called Cortex. Tesla has secretly been testing some faster charging at their supercharger network. So right now you have V3 superchargers, which are capable of 250 kilowatts of delivering 250 kilowatts of energy to the battery. And you have V4 supercharging, which is capable of delivering 350 kilowatts. The problem is Tesla's having a hard time, for whatever reason, of deploying the V4 superchargers. So in the meantime, they kind of have a temporary fix. And I don't know if they're doing this because of the testing or if they're doing this because they can't get enough of the V4 cabinets. But right now, they are running a trial with version 3 cabinets, but actually are equipped with version 4 charge posts. They're calling them V3 Plus stations. And these V3 Plus stations are delivering over 300 kilowatts of energy, which is great. Now, we have to give credit to Teslatino on X because he was the one who discovered this. He hooked his Cybertruck up to one of these bad chickens and was able to get 323 kilowatts and nearly, or right around is what he said actually, 900 amps for about 1 minute. So it wasn't sustained for very long, but it did hit those numbers where previously on V3 superchargers, you're getting a right around 250 kilowatts. And you may be asking yourself, well, why is it that if V4 superchargers can deliver 350 kilowatts, why is it, up around 300 to 325 kilowatts? Why isn't it delivering more than that? Well, that is because the V3 cabinets have limitations that the V4 charge posts inside those cabinets can't overcome. All right, that is it for our Tesla news. I know I said I was going to do 3 stories, but after going over the third story again, I didn't think it was very interesting, so we're just going to skip it. But I will do a Patreon plug right now. If you want to support the show and get rid of the ads for $1 a month, go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com. And you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. And all the money that you spend on Patreon goes right back into the show. None of the money goes into my own pocket. It all goes to support the show 100%. So if you have $1 laying around and you want to help, go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com. Thank you in advance. All right, let's move to our EV news. Lucid Motors has received another $1.5 billion investment from Saudi Arabia. This was announced at the Lucid earnings call that happened actually today or yesterday. And we'll cover that more next week. But just FYI, they got a big old infusion of cash. We've talked about Colorado's EV incentives in the past. If you're not familiar, let me catch you up here. If you live in Colorado, you get $5,000 off most EVs, and then you get another $2,500 off if the EV costs less than $35,000 MSRP. Well, Washington has a pretty good offer as well in terms of incentives. Washington is offering an EV lease incentive of $9,000 for middle to lower income residents. So, to qualify for this $9,000, you need to earn less than $45,000 or $45,180 as an individual, or $93,600 as a family of four, and the MSRP of the vehicle needs to be less than $90,000, which, is a lot of EVs. Not every EV, but that's a lot. So it's estimated that 37% of residents in Washington would qualify for this program. So if you bought, like, let's say you leased a Chevy Equinox for around $40,000, you would get the $7,500 federal tax credit in addition to the $9,000 Washington credit, which would dramatically lower your lease payment. And those leases are for 3 years. So if you live in Washington, think you qualify for this deal and you're in need of a new car and you can, afford that monthly lease payment, it's definitely something to look into. Not that long ago, we had an interview with Forrest North and Jason Marks of Telo Trucks. Well, let's just do a little Telo truck update here. I know many of you who are part of this community already followed Telo Trucks, and even more than that, were very interested in what they were doing after the interview. So I thought an update was in order. So they did secure $5.4 million in funding, which is not a lot when it comes to EV startups, but it'll also help get them through at least the early concepts and prototyping phase, leads us to our next thing. They inked a deal with California manufacturer Aria Group. Aria specializes in early concepts and rapid prototyping. And then one of the original Tesla co-founders, Mark Tarpenning, has joined Telo's board. So I'm not sure or not if that was mentioned when we did the interview with them or if they had talked about that offline. I know he was an advisor. They had mentioned him. I don't think they said he was a board member. So that's good for Telo. They seem to be under good leadership, and it seems like they're heading the right direction. I really hope this company is able to be successful. All right, let's go from one successful startup to one startup that's not quite so successful. Electra Mechanica had a really cool idea, and what their idea was is they were going to make an EV that was a single seat, three-wheeled EV called the Solo. Technically, it was a motorcycle. It sold for around $18,000. They sold a total of right around 428 here in the US. It was a neat idea. There was an issue with the vehicle that caused the electric motor, just to shut down. And a recall was issued, and Electromechanica was bought by another company, and they just didn't really do a fix. So they ended up buying all the Solos back so that they could be destroyed. And right now in Gilbert, Arizona, they're sitting in a landfill just piled up like cordwood. I really hope that they will end up recycling as much of these cars as they possibly can, the batteries, the electric motors. I hope they strip these things for everything that was valuable and then they continue recycling them, because it's a shame. 428 vehicles just being crushed and then not being recycled seems like a waste. And if you're thinking to yourself right now, like Electromechanica, I do remember there was a show on this. Steve and Allison Sheridan and myself, we all took a test drive of the Electric Mechanica Solo, and it was a lot of fun to drive. I had some small complaints here and there, but it was a lot of fun to drive. Allison tried to convince me to buy one, and I was not comfortable with that, and I'm glad I didn't. But it was still a lot of fun to drive. I guess it would have been pretty, if they bought them all back, it would have been pretty a low risk on my part. But yeah. All right, let's move on here. We've talked a lot about Geely, and mostly we talk about their brands like Volvo, Zeekr, Lotus, Polestar. But Geely is not just a group of automotive brands, they have their own branded vehicle called Geely. And we don't talk about that company all that often, but Geely has an all new electric SUV. It's called the Geely Galaxy E5. It's going to come in 5 different trims. The specs are going to be mostly the same for all 5 trims, with the exception the range will be a little bit different. But this is a single motor vehicle. It's going to have on the lowest trim, lower trims, it's going to have a 49.92 kilowatt hour battery pack, 0 to 60 miles per hour or 0 to 100 kilometers in 6.9 seconds, 273 miles of range. The top end model is going to have a 60.22 kilowatt hour battery with 329 miles of range. This vehicle's got really decent storage in the back, and it's got a floor that you can lift up, and there's under the floor storage that's pretty decent as well as under seat storage. This is a 5-seater vehicle, power doors, power seats. It looks like from the videos that I saw, it looks like the seats will also be heated and cooled. Wireless cell phone charger, the flush door handles, and when you walk up, they kind of present themselves to you, which is cool. A digital instrument cluster behind the steering wheel looks nice. The infotainment screen looks nice. There's some tactical buttons. This looks like a really nice vehicle. Now let's get to the best part. The base price of this vehicle is $15,400, and the top end model is going to be $20,450. And it's going to be available in global markets. There were no specifics given, but we can assume that it's going to be China first, and then since it's a Chinese company, and then the rest of the world will come later. Now, recently, the U.S. and Europe, the European Union, have levied some tariffs on these vehicles, so I would not count on the prices being that affordable in those places if that actually gets to those countries and the European Union. But still, that's a pretty affordable car. Even if it's $30,000 for the top end model, that's still a really good deal, especially when you look at the range and the features you get for the money. It's not shipping yet, but it is available for pre-order if you're interested in such things and you live in a place where you can get it. And that leads us to our next story and our final story. Yeah, we burned through those pretty quick. Not a lot of news this week. But I'm sure there'll be more next week. Let's end the show with some good news. And that good news is the cost of battery packs has come down a lot in the last 16 years. We all know the battery pack is a significant part of the cost of an EV. In 2008, it cost about $1,415 per kilowatt hour for a battery pack. So a 70 kilowatt hour battery pack would cost $99,050. Significant. That is a lot of money for a 70 kilowatt hour battery pack. In 2023, the average cost, now this isn't the cheapest, this isn't the most expensive, this is the average. The average cost in 2023 was $139 per kilowatt hour. So for that same 70 kilowatt hour battery pack, you're looking at $9,730, a 90% decrease in cost, which is huge. And honestly, it makes me hopeful for the next 16 years of what we're going to see when it comes to the prices of these battery packs dropping even further. But I seriously doubt we're going to see a 90% decrease in what we have now. We're definitely going to be under $100 in 16 years. Where we're going to be, I don't know, but I doubt we'll be, we're not going to be down to $13 per kilowatt hour or anything like that. But we do have some other things to look forward to. We have, breakthroughs in different battery chemistries, breakthroughs in different technologies and advancements in terms of energy cell density, and then just having more efficient EVs overall. So even though maybe the battery packs, maybe they get down in, 16 years, maybe they get down to, let's say, $50 a kilowatt hour, which may be optimistic, to be honest. But on that same 70 kilowatt hour battery, instead of traveling 300 miles, we can go 380 miles for that same battery, just because of the efficiencies and increased energy density that we could see during that time. So honestly, I'm very hopeful for these advances, and we'll bring this up again in 16 years. Remind me, and we'll have another chat about this. All right, everybody, that is it this week. There wasn't a lot of news that I would call super interesting. There's a lot of stuff in the political realm when it comes to EVs, but I didn't want to talk about that. So I hope y'all had a wonderful weekend. And on Friday, we're going to talk about Ford's Q2 2024 earnings call. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you on Friday.